I'll never forget the night the earth seemed to tremble beneath my feet, the night Adi's heart was broken by a promise she had no choice but to make. I watched from the edge of the village, hidden by the shadows of the old baobab tree. It was a night so thick with dread that even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the night that changed everything. The night the princess, our princess, would either live to see her future or be consumed by it. I'm not sure if you understand what I'm about to tell you. It's a story of love, yes, but one soaked in blood, both the kind that can be spilled and the kind that runs deep in the heart. It's also a story of power, of men who think they can have anything with their wealth, and of a woman who thought she could defy them all. But power, real power, doesn't always bend to the will of a king. Not when the heart is involved. Adis had been the pride of our village, the daughter of the revered chief. Her beauty was legendary, and even her name, Adis, meant princess, the name she bore with quiet dignity. She was as graceful as she was intelligent, and when she spoke, her words carried weight. She was not like the other noble women of the kingdom, who wore their wealth like a crown. Adis was different. Her heart was tender, and she had always dreamed of something pure, something real. But the king, Egu, didn't care for her dreams. He only cared for her title, her bloodline. He had long set his sights on her, and he was a man used to getting what he wanted. He was tall, dark, and strong, the true king by appearance, but in his heart, he was selfish, arrogant, cold. A man who had spent his life amassing power, wealth, and influence. What he lacked was the one thing that mattered most to Adis, love. And then there was him. Namdi. A poor farmer, as poor as the soil he walked with his bare hands. He had nothing but his sincerity, his tenderness, and a love for Adis that was so deep it made even the oldest elders weep when they spoke of it. I had seen them together many times. They would sit under the trees by the river, whispering to one another, their hands touching, their laughter mingling with the sound of the flowing water. No one could deny their connection, not even the most powerful men in the kingdom. But Adis was torn. She had been promised to King Egu, a contract forged long before she had ever met Namdi. Duty bound her to Egu, but it was not the kind of duty that stirred her soul. That was the tragedy of it all. She had everything a woman could want, wealth, a noble name, security, but she wanted none of it if it meant she had to be with a man who couldn't love her. Not in the way she deserved. The next morning, the king could not accept that Adis had chosen a poor farmer over him. His pride was wounded, and his anger burned like fire. He gathered his most trusted bodyguard, a massive man named Ogbuefi, and set out to find Namdi. The king's plan was simple: punish Namdi for daring to stand in the way of his royal claim. They found him walking the fields early in the morning, his hands dirty from tilling the soil. Without warning, Egu and Ogbuefi attacked, beating Namdi mercilessly, their fists pounding into his face and chest. "You think you can take what's mine?" Egu shouted, his voice filled with venom. Namdi didn't fight back. He simply knelt on the ground, blood running from his mouth, his eyes locked on the king with a quiet defiance. It didn't matter how much they hurt him, nothing could take away his love for Adis. Later that evening, after the beating, Namdi's closest friend, Chijiok, sat with him by the fire, the glow of the flames casting long shadows on their faces. Chijiok looked at his friend, his eyes filled with concern. "Namdi, you need to leave Adis alone," he said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The king won't stop until you're dead, and I'm afraid for you. Adis has her duties, she's a princess. A life with her is impossible for a man like you. You've got to think of your future." But Namdi shook his head, refusing to listen. "Love is not something you choose, Chijiok," he said quietly. "I don't care about the king's anger or the pain. Adis is worth everything." Chijiok sighed, knowing there was no changing his mind, but deep down, He feared that Namdi's stubbornness would be his undoing. One evening, Adi's parents called her into the family hut, their faces serious. They told her she could no longer see Namdi, the poor farmer, because he was not fit for a princess. "You must marry King Egu, for the good of the kingdom," her father said firmly. Her mother, Dokinda, urged, "Adis, this is not the life for you. You have a duty to your people." But Adis stood her ground, her eyes filled with determination. "I love him," she said, her voice steady. "Namdi has shown me a love I never knew could exist. He may not have riches, but his heart is richer than anything the king could offer me." Her parents were silent, unable to understand, but Adis had already made her choice. Love had found her, and she would not give it up. The night it all changed, I had been walking home from the marketplace, my path taking me closer to the royal compound. It was late, the air thick with the smell of rain that had yet to fall. As I approached the gates, I saw a figure standing in the moonlight, Adis. She was alone, her back to me, looking out at the far horizon. Her posture was stiff, as though she were bracing for something she didn't want. I had no idea then that she was about to make a decision that would haunt her forever. Behind her, I could hear the sounds of the royal procession. The drums. The chants. Egu was coming. The king, on his horse, surrounded by his guards, the gleam of gold in his eyes. He was smiling, like a man who knew he had already won. "Princess Adis," his voice rang out, so sure of itself. "Tonight, you will be mine. Tonight, you will accept what your father has already promised. The kingdom will rejoice in our union." She turned then, and I saw the battle in her eyes. For a moment, I thought she might collapse from the weight of it all. She opened her mouth to speak, but her words were caught in the wind. "I cannot," she whispered, barely audible. Egu's smile faltered. "What do you mean, you cannot?" he demanded, dismounting from his horse. He took a step toward her, the arrogance dripping from his every movement. "You have no choice in this. Your father has spoken, the elders have spoken. It is done." "I cannot," she repeated, this time with more conviction. "I cannot marry you, King Egu. I love another." Egu's eyes flared with fury. He took a step forward, his fist clenched. "You love another," he sneered, his voice cold as ice. "A farmer. A lowly peasant who has nothing to offer you but empty promises." For a moment, I thought Adis might back down. That she might bow to the pressure. But she stood tall, her chin lifted. "Yes, Egu. I love Namdi. And I choose him, not you." The king's face twisted into a mask of pure rage. He advanced on her, his guards following closely behind. "You will regret this, princess. Do you think I will let you defy me?" His voice was low, dangerous. "You think a poor farmer can offer you anything? He has nothing but the dirt beneath his feet. And you are the daughter of a chief, of a king. You will be mine, Adis. You will bend to my will, or you will suffer." The words hung in the air like smoke, suffocating. But Adis didn't flinch. She didn't even step back. Instead, she turned away, as if she had already made her peace with what was to come. "You can't force me to love you," she said softly, almost to herself. "Not anymore." Egu's rage exploded. He grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward him. "You will learn your place, princess," he spat, his grip tightening. That's when it happened. The earth trembled beneath our feet. A deafening roar erupted from the earth, a sound so powerful that it made the air itself vibrate. The ground cracked open in front of the royal procession, sending dust and debris flying. The sky seemed to darken, as if the heavens themselves were in mourning. A figure appeared from the shadows, moving faster than I could comprehend. Namdi. The poor farmer. the man who loved Addis with all his soul. He had heard the commotion and had come running, though he had no armor, no weapon, nothing but his heart and a desperate plea. He lunged at Egu, knocking him off balance. "Let her go, you coward!" Nnamdi shouted, his voice full of fury and fear. "If you want to hurt her, you have to kill me first." For a moment, I thought the earth might swallow us whole. The storm had come, not from the sky, but from within. But before anything else could happen, the king's guards pulled Nnamdi away, dragging him to the ground. And in that moment, Addis did something that will forever haunt me. She ran. She ran toward the horizon, toward the fields, toward the village where Nnamdi would wait for her. She ran as if she were running from the shackles of her birthright, running from the weight of a future she never wanted. Running for love, pure and untainted by power. And that was the last time I saw Addis. She vanished into the night, her figure swallowed by the darkness, never to be seen again. King Egu, in his fury, ordered the village to be searched for her. But she was gone. Just like that. As though the earth itself had decided to claim her and protect her from the king's wrath. As for Nnamdi, I never saw him again either. They say he left the village, seeking refuge in the faraway lands, where no one could find him. But I know the truth. He left with her, heart and soul. And Egu. He ruled for many years after that, but he was never the same. His arrogance became a mask for his loss, his pride a shield against the truth. Deep down, he knew Addis had chosen love over power. And that knowledge gnawed at him every day until the end of his days. But I'll never forget the way the earth trembled that night. The way Addis chose love over everything. She might have left the kingdom, but in doing so, she took with her the only thing Egu could never possess. Her heart.